After another long break, F1 is finally back again for round 5 in Canada. I have to say though, it really seems like F1 wants us to forget about this season. What with all the backlash regarding the new rules and the lack of races happening, it sure is strange. I know there was nothing F1 could do about Bahrain and Saudi being cancelled, but they could at least do some promos and other bits. It's just total silence from them. Luckily with this weekend though, F1 should be back to normal with the calendar since it's only 1 week between Canada and Monaco. So let's see if that could hype up this season again. Anyway, speaking of hype, there is hype surrounding Canada for a variety of reasons. One, of course, being how this is the first race in a while, but another reason is how teams who didn't bring upgrades in Miami, mainly Aston, Audi, and Mercedes, will bring their new parts here, which could really spice up the competition. However, probably not, considering Mark will likely be 20 seconds ahead of everyone else again, but fear not, since there is still hype surrounding Mercedes just themselves. Kimi Antonelli is leading the standings by 20 points over George Russell, who, as we know, had all the hype around him. It was supposed to be George dominating away while Kimi just gets better, but not close to George yet. I even believe this rhetoric as a #1 Kimi Glazer. However, that ain't happening. Depending on how this race goes, could possibly decide the title dynamic for much of the season. If Kimi wins again while George wasn't able to compete closely, Kimi now has a race win advantage over George. If Kimi wins but George was able to compete closely, then George, despite the points deficit, at least knows he can still fight and claw his way back. Or if George wins, then it's the same as the previous point, but with a much better attitude. And this is only discussing Mercedes. What if McLaren or Ferrari are able to be right there again like in Miami? Could they win potentially? What if the race weekend is crazy and we see some crazy shit? Wouldn't be the first time this happens here. A lot of things can be expected here in Canada, and I, for one, cannot wait. So let's go see what's up by detailing the teams to watch, the drivers to watch, the drama from the weekend prior, and of course, my predictions for the sessions. Subscribe if you're new if you like raw tree syrup, and let's get to quacking now.
See those clouds up in the corner? That's where the rain is coming from.
Let's begin with the teams to watch, and of course, this weekend is a big one. After Canada, teams will be assessed for ADUO, and if their engine is 2% behind Mercedes, the benchmark, they will get some extra time to upgrade and close up. This could change the season depending on which teams are allowed to benefit from this, so let's hope Ferrari is one of them, because Lord knows no one wants a McLaren versus Mercedes title fight. Also, many teams are bringing upgrades here, maybe not to the same extent as Miami, but still notable regardless. Let's begin with everyone's favorite losers, Aston Martin. Now, believe it or not, I know it's so hard to tell, but Aston did not bring any upgrades to Miami. However, the car was tweaked still, since finally, after 2 months of F1, finally their engine stops acting as a vibrator for the drivers. Mind blowing, man. They finally did the bare minimum. Finally fixed an issue no one else had. Good job, Aston. This week, I'm pretty sure they are bringing upgrades here, which, considering the deficit they have to the other teams, it better be some pretty big upgrades if they want to fight. Sure, they were able to fight with Caddy last week, who did bring upgrades of their own, but it's still for nothing anyways. I don't know. I just get sad when thinking about this team, so let's just move on. Next up is Audi, who need a better weekend here. Alan McNish, whose first race as a team principal in Miami, did not go to plan, to say the least. Afterwards, he was obviously like, guys, listen, we are not that bad, just trust the process, Canada will be better. And to that, I say, I believe him. I refuse to believe Jonathan Wheatley was like Jesus to this team. Surely he was not the only guy there who knew how to run things effectively and optimally. I believe in the McNish project, and with some sweet new parts slated to debut in Canada, I do think we could see some good drives again by Gabby and Nico. I mean, they did well enough in Miami when their cars weren't exploding, so as long as the team performance and reliability gets sorted out, the team should be A-okay. Next is Williams, who genuinely stunned me in Miami. I don't even know what to make of their results, since they started the weekend in bumfuck nowhere looking like bums again, but come Sunday they get double points. I even tried to rewatch the race from their perspective, but they didn't get lucky necessarily. I mean, sure, Hadjar crashed and Liam took Gasly down with him, but the Williams pair didn't get lucky and DRS trained their way to points. They drove good, and it's making me real optimistic for Canada. In recent years, Canada has treated the Williams team well, and Lord knows they need whatever performance they could grab, ethical or unethical. Minor upgrades should be installed this week for Canada, and considering how both Carlos and Alex especially like this circuit, again, I am really optimistic for them. Incoming double DNF, by the way, watch. Next up is Haas, who better find pace in their H-ass. No, that didn't work. Miami was just not it for Haas. The first 3 rounds of the season were fantastic for them. Points were everywhere. Ollie was awesome. Esteban Ocon was here, I guess. Things were going so smoothly. But Miami was their first real bad race since they got done hard by the other midfield teams. Haas are expected to bring upgrades here, and if they all go to plan, we should see Haas and Behrman back comfortably in the points. I still have faith in Haas this year, even with the dead weight that is Ocon, since Behrman is just doing that good right now. It would be a big shame if they just fall off the face of the planet, especially with Alpine now being uncontested. So come on, Haas, I still believe in you. Now for the top dogs, and let's begin with Red Bull. Red Bull are at a crossroads right now. Get better or stagnate, but in their typical fashion, it's just not that simple. If they stagnate, Max is unhappy and is crying and pissing about how much he hates his terrible life in these cars, but at least both drivers are in the points. If they improve, great, Max is happy and snarky again while winning or being on the podium at least, but now they don't have 2 drivers since Hadjar is on the hotline. Miami was a potential look into that second reality, and it seems that no matter if it's Mekis or Horner, the curse seemingly is unbreakable, and one could only hope for Isak's sake that his fate is not as bad as Yuki's. But hey, at least Max can win again. Finally, I got Mercedes. Mercedes had their first sketchy weekend in Miami. They of course still won with Kimi, but it was not easy. All race long, Lando was hounding him, and it could be real bad if other teams have already closed the gap to them. But that only happened because Mercedes did not bring their upgrades in Miami. They instead reserved them for Canada. Of course, the parts could be redundant, but I doubt it since Merc are usually good at not doing that. So I'm just gonna come out here and say, unless some craziness and miracles happen, expect Mercedes 1-2 30 seconds into the distance. As for the driver who wins, now we are talking. Kimi is on a roll, of course, while George is getting served in a roll, and while I don't expect this to stay the same all season long, just how long is it going to last? Perhaps Canada is the one that breaks this dynamic. Now for the driver to watch this weekend, and of course, I have George Russell again. To be honest, this section for however many weeks will be dedicated to solely George since I feel like everyone is expecting something now. George has not been performing bad per se, but he certainly isn't having the results reflect his driving. Canada has statistically been one of George's best tracks, and with Mercedes upgrades on the way, I just see no reality where George performs bad. The stars are aligning for George's comeback, so surely this week he's back on top. Surely, right? Now for the drama leading to this week, and first up is some good old FIA nonsense. So in case you didn't know, Israel broke boyfriend hugged the US to go to war with Iran, which has now destabilized the Middle East in a pretty bad way. Naturally, the 2 F1 races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia were cancelled, and instead of moving on, the FIA is like, no, we absolutely need these races. It's really important. Bahrain may be cancelled entirely or replaced with Turkey at some point, but Saudi, however, they really want their race to happen, which is leading to a pretty weird calendar. A world's first quadruple header could potentially happen from Vegas to Abu Dhabi, which is just, bro, for us viewers, most are like, hell yeah, since more F1 equals more happiness. But think of the staff, dude. Triple headers are already exhausting enough. Imagine a whole month of non-stop work, especially if you work for a team with drivers who love to crash. You gotta give the staff like a 200% raise if this goes through, since why do this in the first place? Jeddah is going away in 2027 anyways for the Mario Kart circuit, so just leave it, man. Next up are the adventures of Max Verstappen. For the past several months, Max has competed in a few GT3 races around the Nürburgring with the goal of getting a license and experience for the 24 hours of Nürburgring. Well, that just happened last week where Max classified as the elusive DNF. You gotta feel for him too, since the car just died through no fault of any driver, which doubly sucks when you consider they had a decent chance to win. I mean, Max's stint saw the team take a big lead while the drivers from Danny Yucadea kept the lead consistent. It seemed like a brilliant performance from everyone involved, and it still very much is, but poor drive shaft couldn't handle the pressure, I guess. I still love this though, since the more F1 drivers start racing in other motorsports again like the good old days, the better. As long as they're annoying as LARPer fans stay away though, which given how the Nürburgring race went, yeah, I don't know about F1 drivers doing other shit now. Staying on topic with Red Bull though, next up is the future of the team. So with Max obviously being very pissy about the new rules, and with his lover GP moving to McLaren, Max's future at Red Bull is looking very uncertain, and if he does go, then who do Red Bull have now for results? Isak Hadjar is there, sure, but like, he's no multi-level champion driver in my eyes. He has a lot of flaws that he will need years to improve upon. Well, Red Bull know this, so who do they have eyes for? Oscar Piastri. To many, this is the obvious pick since we know Oscar can fight for the title. He literally did it already. Oscar is also really good, just like Lando is, which leads to the whole papaya mess over at McLaren. If Oscar wants a space where he wants to avoid team orders and other nonsense, Red Bull is the perfect place for that. Time will have to tell if this move happens, but personally, I see it as very realistic. Oscar has of course denied rumors, but I feel like we know better than to actually believe his words. Finally is a story that Esteban Ocon may get fired mid-season. I mean, do I really need to explain this? We can all see for ourselves. Esteban has not been performing for many races now, even going back to 2025. I mean, I know Ollie is good, but he should not be getting his ass handed to him by a fucking rookie. It's unacceptable, really, especially considering the experience he has. I feel bad for him, though, since I really like Esteban, but performance is everything, and it's just not coming together. It hasn't for a long time. As for his replacement, it's far too early for Kamada, so my guess is going to be Yuki Tsunoda since he was rumored a couple months ago anyway, so yeah, here lies Esteban Ocon's hope and dreams. Now for my predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix that will be proven right, I swear. As always, must be stated that we'll predict 3 things: the top 5 in the qualifying, the top 5 in the race, and a random prediction from any session. It should also be noted that these predictions are based on nothing but pure vibes, so bear with me. Like last week, we got sprints this weekend, people. My sprint pole prediction will be George Russell, as well as my sprint win prediction. Nothing much to say, really. Now for the main qualifying predictions, I predict that the top 5 on Saturday, starting with 5th, will be Oscar Piastri, 4th will be Lando Norris, and 3rd will be Kimi Antonelli, and 2nd will be Charlie Kirk, and for pole position, I have George Russell, who is on a roll this weekend. Now for the race predictions, and starting with 5th, I have Lando Norris, and 4th, I have Oscar Piastri, and 3rd, I have Charles Leclerc, and 2nd, I have Kimi Antonelli, and the winner of the 2026 Canadian Grand Prix is George Russell, who completes the sweep. Time for my random prediction. I think in the sprint race, there will be more safety cars than in the main race. Also remember, for a chance to appear in the winners and losers, go join my Discord to make your predictions. Anyways, that was my weekend preview for Canada. I am pretty hyped for this race since even in boring ass cars that produce nothing, this race has always produced something. It's one of the best on the calendar for a reason, and one can only hope that this year continues that trend. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to all my Brazil flock for the continued support, and make sure to join in if you want cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you have a like and subscribe since it really helps me out, and make sure to let me know in the comments what your predictions are. And as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.